Focused intermediaries remain a big part of online travel, but can they continue to rely solely on just one vertical, region, or stage of travel planning? Please welcome to the stage Bryan Dove, CEO of Skyscanner, Ted Evers, founder and CEO of TripTuner, Sam S. Jain, founder and CEO of Fareportal and CheapOair, and Sam Shank, CEO of HotelTonight and head of hotels at Airbnb. Welcome, guys. Thanks so much for joining us on stage this year. Okay, so it seems like it's increasingly more difficult to just focus on one part of the funnel or just one travel product. A couple of the big online travel players have increasingly been talking about how they want to be, the end-all be-all, one-stop shop, connected journey, whatever word they choose. So starting with a yes or no question, and then we'll dive into the meat of it more. Is this what the market demands for long-term success? Start with Bryan, come down the throat.
Yes.
I'll say no, it doesn't demand it.
Okay.
That's a no.
No.
See, I can say yes and no because I've got HotelTonight, which is a yes or a no, and then Airbnb, which is the full connected trip.
Yep, okay. So let's start then with the funnel, right? Because we have a couple of different perspectives up here of what you guys have done. HotelTonight, you guys actually were both research and booking. People would go straight to you, and then they would book, and they would find their things. So from a HotelTonight perspective, can you expand on that a little bit more? You focused on one segment, but multiple stages of the travel planning process.
Yeah, with HotelTonight, it was two things. One, it was a reaction to the first two startups that I did, which were very Google reliant. A Travel Post hotel review site that was SEO reliant, and then Dealbase, which is a travel deal search engine, which was SEM reliant. And the rules were always changing. It was very difficult to get any critical mass, and it was very hard to own the customer. So I saw mobile, and I said, there's a chance to build something great on mobile that would have customers coming directly to HotelTonight. And to do that, you have to build, it's sort of the old-fashioned way of building a business. You have to build things that people love and they love to love. So we focused on just really great product market fit, high-quality product experience. We obsessed over everyone that came through and made sure that they had a great experience. We refunded everybody that complained in the early days. We don't do that now. And made sure that then we could create virality off of that. And now, to this day, the vast majority of people come directly to HotelTonight because of that.
Okay. And then for CheapOair, you said no, right? You guys are a very air-focused product. So
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your vote.
So in terms of the funnel segment, I believe that it really has to be diversifying the funnel. A lot of companies are focused in the middle part of the funnel, which is mostly driven by search engine marketing, metas, and it's very crowded and really costly space to be in. And you have to be there. I don't think you can avoid it if you're acquiring customers. But I think it's really critical for companies to start focusing on the top of the funnel in the inspiration, awareness, interest stage. You really have to be in front of the customer early on. And I think that investment that you make in social media, in branding, that really supports the middle part of the funnel. And I think the most important part, which a lot of people overlook, is the post-booking part of the funnel, which is like retention and creating advocacy. So I think the goal is investing in emails, apps, and loyalty programs, and also creating products that create engagement and virality, I think is very critical.
So Ted, you said doesn't demand it. So you want to tell us a little more about that?
Sure. I think that it's very easy to switch between apps, for example. I mean, we all have 100 apps on our phone. So to be a one-stop shop, maybe in the past would have been a benefit. But right now, if someone has a HotelTonight on their phone, you can just hop over to there quite easily. There's no friction there. And in terms of kind of presence in the funnel, I do really believe that you need to be there in all phases because, in my opinion, the funnel actually isn't a funnel anymore. I like to call it a sphere because no matter where you are in the process, that booking is just an equidistant, short distance away. Because it's so easy, technology has enabled the booking to be done anywhere, anyhow. So the challenge becomes then, how do we connect with consumers wherever they are, meet them where they are? Because trying to do all of it is not necessary. They have the tools. How do we connect with them and make an emotional connection with your brand?
Yeah. And Bryan, you're a pretty strong yes over there, so.
I think for a number of the items that got brought up here, especially Sam mentioned around retention, is acquiring customers in a world where they're only going to visit you once a year or maybe use your app twice a year. I think it becomes quite easy to get lost and forgotten from the consumer's mindset. And so the more services, the more products that you can offer them, the more frequently that they'll come back. And I think the core part is you still have to build a great product. You have to build something that customers love. But when you fight so hard to acquire a customer in the first place, the more frequently you can serve them, more frequently you can remind them of how much they love the products and services you have to offer, the easier it is to hold on to them and retain them.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys started out as Metasearch and then just recently announced that you're switching your model a little bit, right? So you're going to be the merchant of record for some bookings. But how is that going to be different from what some Metasearch players have been doing before with the the facilitated bookings, right? From the consumer's perspective, when I see it, how is clicking, the book button directly with Skyscanner going to improve my process?
I think from an industry perspective, we talk a lot about the differences between whether something is a direct booking, whether it's a facilitated booking, is an OTA, or with an operator. I think from a consumer perspective, what they're really focused on are they getting all their choices? Are they getting the best prices? And is it convenient and easy to make their purchase? And are they finding a product that they love? And so the transition we're making is really just to bring the breadth of everything that we have for all of the OTAs around the world that we work with, that have great products and great prices, and accelerate that transition to make it convenient for customers around the world to use their phone and purchase any flight they want in an easy and convenient way. Yeah. And so we think of this as from an industry perspective as an evolution, but from a consumer perspective, quite obvious and easy for them.
Okay, and I will come back to Metasearch a little bit more, but I want to touch up on what you mentioned, right, with HotelTonight. Yes, you can be in one hotel product or one product. But then why did you join a bigger organization that believes that they need to be the whole thing?
Well, I think that there's going to be multiple winners in travel, and there's going to be both some specific solutions that some people prefer. And in the case of HotelTonight, it's a lot of frequent business travelers that are doing their travel last minute anyway, that prefer the convenience of 15-second booking. And then for Airbnb, this is for different types of trips. This is generally for more considered purchases, longer duration, further in advance, where we can provide inspiration, we can provide a great variety of lodging options and soon to be hotels farther integrated into the process, as well as other categories that we've announced or are working on, experiences and transportation. And that is going to appeal to a different type of customer for a different type of trip. I only use two companies to book my travel, HotelTonight and Airbnb, for two different, very complementary use cases. And that's what was exciting for me to join forces, is that we really were better and stronger together than apart.
Only two?
Only two.
Okay.
Well, united maybe sometimes.
All right, so Ted, you had mentioned, right, yes, it's easy to switch from app to app, but what about actually managing all that though, right? And what if something goes wrong in part of your trip and then you have to go and figure out how to make all the pieces work together again?
Well, you actually touched upon the reason why the one-stop shop is difficult, or where those who do attempt to do that have to focus on the customer service. So I think it cuts both ways. If someone's booking direct, it may be because they have the confidence that they'll be taken care of. Maybe I'm a loyalty program member, for instance. But when you think about what it takes to connect with the customer with loyalty and with guiding them and giving them advice, we think of traditional travel agents, and those were trusted resources that you could call and contact with any sort of issue that may have come up. And the OTAs, I think we lost kind of an opportunity to carry that service level in the pursuit of all these other technological advancements, and sometimes leaving the customer service aspect behind. It's something, in my experience back at Travelocity, we had a Travelocity guarantee. That was something that we kind of focused on. But I think, to your point, you have to have that customer service if you're going to try to be that one-stop shop, and it's quite a big challenge.
And then so for the OTAs that are, doing a better job at starting to move towards being that one-stop shop, for someone like CheapOair that is very focused on flights, you guys do have other products on there, but much more as just an add-on, right? You still focus more on that. But how will you continue to compete with that in the long run as people want more of this frictionless future, right? That buzzword that we keep hearing.
So, our strategy, Alice, is to really focus on that one anchor product and make it really the world's best and be the best in that product. We know it, it's in our DNA. All our 4,000 Fareportal employees know the air product really well. And I think building satellite products around it that really are synergistic to the anchor product so we can upsell and cross-sell, I think that's really critical for us as well. And then we have built in a lot of differentiators. For example, we are the only company in the United States that has a toll-free number on every web page. And this was done like 14 years ago when we actually launched CheapOair.
People are using that still? The phone's still ringing?
Still ringing.
OK.
And I might get a call anytime, so it's possible. And we have 4,000 global employees, and we have 2,500 very well-trained travel agents. So these are the kind of differentiators that we have put into place, and it's been working very well for us. The other thing that really works well when you have one core product, it's the focus, and I think the customers start to recognize your brand with that product. So that becomes a really good, sticky experience for the customers. And additionally, to that is the niches that you can create within that core product. So for example, in flights, we have created, like group travel or student or seniors or unaccompanied minors, for example. So there's a lot of depth and niche business that can be created off of that main core product.
Yeah. OK, so we just had a whole session about the case against Google, right? So there's a lot of attention on how Google's pay-to-play positions are really pushing down other travel brands in the search result pages. So is there a way to use Google and differentiate today? Who wants to take it first?
For me, I think there is. I think it's less about trying to guess what they're going to do next or guess where the evolution is. I think the evolution, especially on mobile, becomes quite clear, and they continue to evolve. And ultimately, they're building products that consumers resonate with and use. I think the challenge for all of us and the opportunity for all of us in the industry is when we are able to have customers engage with our products, how do we give them enough value, enough product, something that they really love, that they stay with any particular vendor's product rather than going back to Google for their next search. And that's where I really think that expansion into offering an increasing breadth of services, diversity in services. We talked about a number of differentiators, differentiating on service, differentiating on price, differentiating on convenience. All comes down to when you're able to acquire a customer, are you building something they really love that they just want to come back to and use your products rather than going back to Google as their default?
Yeah, and if a customer is going to be using Google, enable or let's get away with let's do away with the walled gardens and really react to how consumers are actually using the technology that's out there and deal with that scenario from a customer-centric point of view. We're so used to in the industry taking a look at all the tension between the different forms of distribution, whether it's hotel direct versus an OTA, et cetera, and sometimes that customer view gets lost in the process.
Yeah. And so for HotelTonight, you mentioned the idea came because your earlier businesses were very Google reliant, right? So why did HotelTonight succeed so much without needing to rely on Google?
Well, it really wasn't about the fact that we didn't rely on Google. Google was and remains a great partner for us, and they do have an amazing product. They have a lot of people that show up there, and you got to be where customers are. In the case of HotelTonight, the specific opportunity was that there was a platform shift from web to mobile, and especially from web to App Store. And I went and saw that there were no great travel apps in the category. And I said, what if you built something from scratch? Now it's called Mobile First. Mm-hmm. And that's what we built, and it resonated because it was something fresh, new, and different. We had about probably a 5-month window when the App Store was big enough to matter to build a business on, but before Expedia had launched their app. Mm-hmm. And so we got in there and were able to generate some excitement and generate some momentum before others got in there. So that wouldn't be a good way to start a business now, but at the time it was really what worked. And it allowed us then to build that brand that brought people back directly to the product. And I think that if you look at Airbnb shares this with a brand that's resonant, a brand that's emotionally connected, a brand that people love to talk about and experience, even when it's not the 2 weeks of the year that they're traveling. And that is the biggest challenge with our industry from distribution, is that it's 2 to 3 weeks out of the year that people are using our product. And because of that, people don't necessarily remember where they booked before, and they show back on Google again. If we were able to book every day, like an Uber, people don't go to Uber or to Google and say, Uber, and then jump to the Uber app because it's a daily habit. And so it's up to us to create those daily habits, create those more frequent usages. And some of it just may be offline completely because people are talking about the product, their experience, or their stories around it. And then they'll remember it and go directly to it when they're thinking about it next.
OK, so related to this then, aside from the SEO things, travel Metasearch, right? Google's search products for travel are much more front and center. They're being used. Google pretty much owns the consumer at the very top of the funnel. So where does that leave flight or travel-specific meta search in the future? Maybe start with Bryan down there.
Sure. So, I think, especially with some of the news we've shared over the last couple of weeks, we've tried to be really crisp and clear on our point of view, which is the world continues to shift towards mobile. I think as an industry, we lagged behind other consumer industries in embracing that shift and making it simple and easy for consumers to find what they want and be able to make their purchases on a phone. And we need to have experiences that differentiate in that way, that really embrace what makes the phone unique. And we'll continue to try to transition that way. I think similar to Sam's journey on HotelTonight is Google might be a great way for people to discover your product, but if you build something that people love, that they talk about, if you can increase that level of frequency and create that habit, whether it's daily or weekly or monthly, I think that's really where the future goes, and less about the Metasearch model where you're opening up additional tabs in the browser. That's a much more computer-centric approach.
I think we have an audience question.
Hi everyone, Burhan this side from Oyo. So I had a question to the entire panel, and particularly looking at the future of the funnel, how do you think, what are the big differences that you see across different platforms like mobile apps and desktop websites with respect to the funnel?
What are the? I'd love to. Could you repeat? What were the?
What are the biggest differences when you look at the funnel across these different platforms?
Sure. Well, I think if you look at the state of mind that the user is in when they're in different, using different types of devices, right? I know I heard an Uber executive speak about how their UX is designed for if someone's sitting back or if they're leaning in, and they can tell all of this by the angle of the phone. So I think that has an implication on the types of offers and messaging that you're using. So, but with respect to the funnel, I'll just reiterate that I think that inspiration is kind of everywhere. So you need to be able to make something that's bookable and to be able to connect with people based on where they are right now, how they're feeling now, not necessarily based on something that they've done in the past, in order to connect with them regardless of the device that you're on.
I think to add to that. If you look at the funnel, a lot of the funnel right now is like in the middle section of the funnel, which is all paid search engine marketing and the metas and a very crowded, costly space. So I think it's important for companies to start looking at a lot of building products which are driven by data, personalization, understanding the customer demand and customer preferences, and really understanding the customer, what their needs are and their likes and dislikes, and then collecting a tremendous amount of supplier content, and then trying to match the two, building products like a platform that connects the two, and really giving them that experience. How do you take 100 billion, let's say, searches that we get per day, and how do you build products out of that? You take like 10 top deals out of that really matches that individual's personal preference. And that sticky experience, I think it's more like a product marketing, and I think that's where the customers generate loyalty with the customers, and you can keep them for life.
Yeah. I think the other piece is on mobile versus desktop. And for all of us on our phones, on our apps, we expect them to understand us, to be more personal towards us, and there's much less screen space to work with. So I think that nature of pure personalization and curation will become ever more important. Whereas on a desktop computer, when you have a large screen to work with, you're looking for more information, you have options to be able to do that comparison and do it on your own. So I think over time, you'll continue to see more divergence between the large screen and the small screen formats and funnel experiences and shopping experiences.
I think that one of the interesting things about mobile versus desktop is that there is a place that is very highly trafficked and visited, that is a place for inspiration for travel, which we haven't had in desktop. And that place is Instagram. And that is where the past few personal trips have started from. And it was very unexpected sources. It was a designer and where they went on vacation. And it wasn't promoted. It was word of mouth en masse. And that is a very powerful tool that I haven't seen Instagram really lean into. And it'll be interesting over the next few years to see how they play that out and if they become the starting point for travel from an inspiration perspective.
Well, there is something called influencer marketing, which is becoming very popular. and I was reading an article.
Can I hire you for that? Huh? I'm going to hire you. Yeah.
Sure. That was a plug for your Instagram account? Or, no,
I don't even have an Instagram account. But the influencer marketing, actually the influencers can really lift your conversion rate. So if the influencers, bloggers post it, and there is like now a whole industry around it, and you can actually pay companies, and you can get hundreds of bloggers to post your content. And I've noticed there was an article that actually it lifts the conversion rate in a big way because it's almost like a referral.
I think it's just so early. It's like we're in the excite era of search engines with Instagram.
That's right.
Go ahead.
I was talking about also attribution right now can be difficult as well because we're early, as Sam had mentioned. So I think we have to look at the funnel as not necessarily being linear. It's very bouncy. People might look at one offer and all of a sudden another one pops up, or they get on Instagram, they see where their friend is and say, no, I'm going to go there instead. In the US we have 24 hours to cancel a booking for a flight. So I mean, people can make decisions on the fly now, so they could be very deep in what we would refer to in the past version of the funnel, and then all of a sudden jump back up into an inspiration phase and back to a different destination. So I think we need to get rid of that linear aspect to the funnel as well.
But there is a travel app that has successfully covered all the stages of the funnel, Ctrip, right? So they have inspiration content all the way down to the long tail of in-destination activity booking. So they are able to stay on the traveler's phone all the time because they have a good reason to. So why has that been slow to pick up in some of these other markets?
Well, I think for me, as one of the few inspiration startups that have been around for 10 years on stage that actually convert to bookings, I will say that exactly for that reason. I think traditionally people think of inspiration as being so far from the booking that it's not worth it, or maybe there isn't enough traffic there. But inspiration is always there. People are always looking and always open to a new offer. So I think we have to consider that and factor in. But traditionally, why they haven't added inspiration was because it was perceived as being so far from the booking. But now, as Sam alluded to, someone could be on Instagram and then all of a sudden book something. So that's kind of thrown out the window.
Yeah, I think also on the Ctrip piece, you see not only what they're doing in travel, but you see a number of these super apps that have emerged in especially in high growth economies, whether it's in China or in Southeast Asia or LATAM, and seeing the way they have created those habits and created that level of daily and weekly frequency. It's one of the reasons I feel so strongly about the one-stop shop is that I think that's quite illustrative of where things need to go. And I think if you listen to some of the other consultants that are larger and have scale to invest, I think one of the challenges with one-stop shop is you need genuine scale to invest to cover that breadth of content. But as folks have access to that scale, I think it almost becomes inevitable as an end. When is a different question, but an inevitable endpoint.
Yeah, and so for super apps, and like who's in these markets where it hasn't taken off yet, who's better positioned to do it, right? You mentioned the importance of the frequency of interaction with the traveler. So can a travel app in some of these other markets be a travel super app, or does it need to be somebody else?
Well, I was thinking about how super apps have evolved, and that it's in markets where that was the first app, was a major app that then added on other services. So they provided what Google provides for us, which is search and navigation, to find these other services. Now I've got a super app, but it's my iPhone, and my home screen has all of the apps on it. I just move things around when one doesn't do a good job and they're off, and I put somebody else on, right? And so I can have this ultimate set of point solutions to create my super app. But we've evolved differently because we started from a search perspective versus a mobile perspective and an app-first perspective. And there were these existing services. So I'm curious as to if that's going to lead to them evolving towards more like us, or us evolving more like a super app. And we'll see.
I think it could vary by market too, right? Because you mentioned your phone becomes your super app, and you're choosing it. You're in control as the user. So it's your kind of self-curated selection of apps that you use for whatever life hack you're trying to undertake, including travel. So it depends on the market. I think that Europe also would be probably good for considering it, only because there's so much frequency in travel, like city breaks, et cetera, and also the type of marketing that they do with selling seats in advance for a set number of seats for a set number of price. So.
Okay, quick true or false game, right? We're going to go down the line. No description of your answer, just true or false, okay? So I'm going to say a statement. We'll start with Bryan and go quickly down the line. I know we're out of time. Travel Metasearch is so 5 years ago.
False.
True.
True and false, halfway there.
True.
Okay, we got to go faster. Bigger is always better.
True.
False.
True.
False.
Personalization is overrated.
False.
True.
False.
False.
Payments are sexy.
True.
Could you repeat that, please?
Payments are sexy.
I just heard the sexy part. False.
True.
True.
Google's unfair.
False.
Stop crying.
False.
False.
Facebook is your friend.
True.
Friends.
True.
True.
Amazon will win in travel.
False.
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 Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking our panelists. Awesome job.
Look who's cheap now. You are. And millions more just like you with CheapOair.com. Because when you spend less booking your flight, you're free to do more, see more, live more, and save more. So you can start planning your next adventure. Just download, click, or call and save on the best flights.
CheapOair.com.
Go ahead, be cheap.